All right, welcome to this free case study and general training around the principles that can help us let go of body hatred, improve our self-esteem, and say goodbye to food restriction and binging for good with attuned eating. And why would we want to do that? And maybe that's why you're here, is that you want to learn to trust and feel good in your body with no obsession required. My name is Tracy Brown. I'm a somatic nutrition therapist, registered dietitian, and intuitive eating and body image specialist, and I'm happy to be here with you today. So what we'll be talking about in our training is the importance of learning the nuances of eating based on hunger and fullness signals and body signals to shorten the time to freedom with food and weight worries. We are going to discover some vital tools to end the body bashing cycles that steal your self-esteem. So things that I don't see talked about very much. And of course, I'm going to, throughout this training and case study series, be really pushing the idea of you learning how to be your own health and nutrition expert through intuitive eating. So this training, of course, is for you if you are really hungry to trust yourself with food and you're determined to find a peaceful way to live. And if you're frustrated with the constant ups and downs of both your weight and self-worth, and you're just sick of clinging to what the world says about how you should be and feel to be acceptable. One of my favorite things to do in sessions with clients is to have them imagine what it would be like to have the relationship with food they want, or the relationship with eating with people that they want, or how they want to be and see their life with their body. So I'll say like magic dust. So imagine that pixie dust. And people often tell me that the reason they're here, or the reason they're even inquiring about letting go of dieting or recovering from an eating disorder, is that they want to totally trust their signals of hunger and fullness and not judge their food choices, or really worried that anybody else would even care to judge their food choices. People want to understand. I tend to work with people who are really curious about, like, well, why do I get stuck and why do I feel this way? And so I'm dedicated to helping you understand when you say I feel fat, or you say the food feels like too much, or I don't know if what I feel is food or if it's my emotions, I don't really understand what's happening. You are a person who wants to understand how to decode this for yourself. And you're just tired of feeling uncomfortable, and we want to learn how to stop judging ourselves and get to the heart of things. We really don't want to just be like, okay, I just want to like my body and eat normally. Like, I want to understand how to really know myself. And you want to have a lifetime of tools to do all those things. And we want to learn how to feed our different hungers, our physical hunger, our emotional hunger. We want to know how to rest, play, have connection, and just, even if things are rough, you want to know how to navigate that. So what I know about the pain of food and weight obsession is I had years and years and years, most of my early growing up years into my young adulthood, feeling like a failure and feeling less than. And I fell into the trap that many of us do, is that if I could just get the outside right, if I could just get the right body and nobody could ever criticize me, I would be fine. I wouldn't have to worry about anything. There would be one less thing to worry about. Which turned into a really unfortunate consequence of it. It went from like, oh, I'm just doing this thing to help me feel better about myself, and it turned into not only just restricting, but binging and over-exercise as well, which led to like this looping of feeling selfish about the time I spent thinking about myself, my body, and it really turned me into not as a compassionate as a person as I always felt like I was. And I could accomplish a lot of stuff. I could really just put my head down and accomplish a lot, but it really was like the expense of not only my relationship with food, but of my holistic health. And I couldn't let go of what people thought about me. So why is all this important for you? Why does the story matter to you, and how will it help you? Is that I have a history of chronic shame, people pleasing, trying to earn love through being kind of perfect. And I'm a really highly sensitive person. And this led, and not knowing how to navigate that, led to a life of perfectionism, but also hypervigilance, and never just feeling like safe or comfortable or normal. And of course, to cope with that, I had a lot of unhealthy patterns around food and body image and exercise. And of course, something had to change. I mean, this is not a way to thrive in life. And I started to really look at okay, from this adult perspective of this food and weight obsession, not being able to eat out comfortably without fear of doing it wrong, or even just the sensations and feelings I had on food and weight thoughts all the time were diminishing my quality of life, my health, my relationships, my grip on reality, because again, we tend to think that everybody thinks how we do, that they're judging our bodies and our food. And even though we do live in a very image-focused world, people don't think as much about what we're doing as we think they do. So I did get some support around that, because my way of trying to fix it was if I just do the right diet and I just can follow it just a couple days, then I'll get some momentum and I'll be okay. And that kind of thinking wasn't getting me very far. So, here we are together trying to do something different. So the breakthrough for me was that I had to surrender my way of doing things. My way of trying to control my traumas, my shame, my separations, and suppressing my sensitivity through food, binging, restriction, over-exercise, and workaholism. And I needed to learn how to feel safe, how to trust people, and how to be vulnerable. And I just recognized that I couldn't really do this alone, because part of how all this started was feeling so alone and trying to white knuckle everything myself. And we really do need relationship to help us heal. And so these are some of the case studies I'm going to be talking about today. Not just my story, but other people's. And you might relate to this. This is why this is so important to share, is not just what I've been through or what my training is, but what other people have tried, So you may relate to this, some self-hatred. So we think sometimes, like Brooke said, numbers, scales, carb phobia, it was suffering at its finest. And when the scale read less, it was joy. And when it was higher, my self-hatred was at an all-time high. And she felt really fat phobic and hopeless. She says, Tracy helped me through my darkest times. She had listened and guided me into freedom with food and body image. So she kind of cut to the point. She kind of did the highlights of, here's the worst of my life, and here's what's feeling really great right now. And in the middle is all the things I'm going to be talking about today. So I also had another client, and she talks about how, Bailey here was really struggling with calorie counting and had no body trust. It's almost like from the neck down, she couldn't relate to or find. And that's part of the process we're going to talk about today, as well as how to do some of those things. But she went from counting every calorie, every macro, everything, to being able to go on weekend trips with her friends and quote unquote eat normally and eat cupcakes and pizza and not feel guilt and not feel like she had to earn it. And what's priceless about this story for her is that she had fun, and it helps her be more authentically herself. And again, that's the point. We want food freedom, but what we really want is freedom and joy and peace and to feel authentic. And so why am I teaching about this? Very simply, my calling and my passion is to help people live more fully through healing their relationship with food and weight. Our calling isn't to be the smallest person in the room and to try to earn love that way. I grew up in a time where there wasn't access to high quality, in-depth help. There were some books, now I know there's a lot of books and podcasts and things you can read, and that's probably how you found me. But I'm really dedicated to helping people really get it, that it's the surface, we have to heal the relationship with food and body, but underneath, if we don't have inner stability and safety, a lot of this doesn't land. And I want you to know that you're cared for, and that you're not suffering from not knowing this information. And I'm just really passionate about everyone healing from internalized shame and fat phobia. I know that seems like it's the norm in this world, it's part of the fabric of this world, but I don't accept the norm, and I don't believe that we need to change our bodies to fit any kind of ideal. I think our job is to recognize our own genetic diversity and authenticity and work with the bodies we have at any given season of our lives, and we can still feel peace and contentment. So what I know is that I believe that everyone can heal, and I think we all have different journeys, but I want you to reflect on what we've already talked about so far, because I want you to take that and then dig deeper with the coming up information. The stories you've heard And the ones that are going to come are all from people who are willing to take risk and utilize the process I'm presenting. In fact, that's one of the main reasons I'm talking to you today. I think there's a ton of information out there, but I don't think there's a lot of nuance to it. And I think that there's some missing pieces around really digging deeper. It's not just about principles of intuitive eating. It's about how do we deal with what comes up as we try to apply the principles. And that's super important to me because I think a lot of people are struggling just for lack of the nuances. And the nuances take action because we're going to get scared. We're going to feel like things are a lot. And then how do we deal with the a lot is how things can get better. And as you continue to listen, I want you to think if you are an action taker, or if you are a person that's like, I like to take in lots of information, but I'm kind of scared to take action. I want you to think about the price of that, and not to be non-compassionate here, but the things I'm going to present are really for people who are scared, honestly, but are willing to take some risk, because those are the people that get full freedom. And I want to be full transparency that I don't really have a program per se to sell today. It's more about the process that I'm exploring with you, as well as if you would like to talk to me about how to use these tools for your specific circumstances to get to the level of freedom you want. I have some links that you can chat with me by phone at the end of this. That way you can get really clear about how these tools can work for you, what that would look like, what you've already tried, and just to get really, really clear about like, oh, maybe you're really close and you just need a couple more pieces that would get you to where you want to go. So what we're going to discover in the rest of this training here in the case studies is why restriction makes people more out of control with their eating and their emotions, and how intuitive eating and body trust is the solution. And of course, we're going to talk about myths behind the idea that you need to lose weight to be healthy. And why I see over and over and over again over the last 13 plus years is that trying to lose weight actually keeps us from the health that we could have with the bodies that we do have. And I'm not overstating this, that there is this tool that we're going to talk about, how to decode I feel fat. It's probably one of the most life-changing things and parts of your process that you can apply here. And what you're also going to discover is that I know that you're a person who wants to stop binging, dieting, and looking for the next thing. And that you can be the debate about how you should eat can end. That you can know that, of course, you can use food for fuel, nutrition, pleasure. And those are all body-based ways of eating. And we can let go of the idea that we have to control our food with our minds. That building body trust is actually the doorway in to you learning how to honor and trust yourself and on many deeper levels, and how you can come home to yourself. And in my not so humble opinion here is that attuned eating is the most do no harm approach out there that addresses the needs of the body and also takes into account your past and current circumstances and helps you take willpower out of the equation. So you may have heard this, and maybe you haven't thought about that much though, is that we were born intuitive eaters. We were born to eat this way. We came equipped with our signals of hunger, fullness, and satisfaction. And this connection gets disrupted only because of outside influences. It wasn't because you woke up one day as an infant or a toddler and said, you know what, I don't think I like the way my toddler body's looking, and I'm going to count some calories. We don't think that. We learn that stuff. And what happens is we get in the environment where we learn that stuff, whether it's at home, at school, doctor's offices, wherever. And as a kid, we have to survive. And it's either, if we're feeling like if we are made to feel like there's something wrong with our food or our bodies, that disrupts that connection with ourselves. And what starts to get overcoupled is this idea that maybe something's wrong with me, and maybe if I just fix the food, then I'll be okay, and there won't be any criticism or fear of criticism or whatever. So what you'll start to notice that, maybe you ate less, and you got some outside praise. So it's really that coupling happens, that like my body is my worth, or my body is the only place I get praise. And then that's where you get these deeper roots that get us disembodied from listening to and trusting our bodies. We think it's about our bodies being the problem. It's just the environment. But again, we can't do anything about that so much sometimes when we're 5 or we're 10 or we're 16. We just have to we want to feel safe, and we want to feel connected and be okay. And sometimes that feels, you have to make a choice. Either I trust my body and I'm okay with my body, or I do what I got to do to feel love or support or connection. And what also can happen is that we use undereating or overeating as a distraction from overwhelm, because that worked. Maybe you were 5 and the only thing that soothed you was being able to get access to cookies by yourself, and you felt safe and supported. And so that gets overcoupled with, safety and support gets coupled with food. And that's been a survival strategy. So these are just some of the ways that we kind of start to that connection atrophies. And now it's always there. We just have to kind of rediscover it. And I also want to talk about this idea that our bodies can't be trusted. A lot comes from diet culture. And there's a study called this Minnesota Semi-Starvation Study, or the KEY study. And it demonstrates really clearly, the body actually rebels from food restriction. And it can take 8 months or even over a year to recover from food restriction with just consistent eating. So a lot of times people think, well, okay, I'm going to break up with dieting, I'm going to start eating more, and we think within 2 weeks or 4 months that we're going to be fine. Well, it depends on how long or how low below our set point we've gone, how much food we need to eat and for how long. And so I know that's really scary, because our bodies are going to change and adjust to maybe doing that. And that then bumps up to those old roots of some places where we coupled up eating in a certain way to protect ourselves. And then we think that, starting intuitive eating is some kind of thing that's making us out of control. And it's not really the process of getting back renourished is out of control. It's the feelings that come up, and the lack of feeling like I know how to keep myself safe is where all the emotion comes. And this is not something that's talked about in intuitive eating circles. And then we bump up with diet culture that says that, you should be able to willpower your weight loss and keep it down forever. And the truth is that the science is pretty clear that weight loss only remains about 6 months to 2 years. And that's not because you lack willpower. It's just because the body, again, is every cell in your body is programmed for life, and our bodies want to have homeostasis. So it's not going to be okay with getting undernourished or being below a weight that feels like that's part of your genetic programming. And so if you want to screenshot this, you may, but here is kind of a really good in-depth article about some of these things that I'm talking about today. Not so much the whole how things get a little bit askew with being embodied and trusting our signals. It's just that diet culture makes some of that happen, and then we don't trust the process to go back to be a more normal eater again, because a lot of emotion comes up. And we also have belief systems around food now, because we've been in diet culture for any number of months or years. So I want you to think about who's attuned eating for. I work with a diverse population of people of all shapes and sizes. And so sometimes people think, well, let me lose some weight first, and then I can be more okay with my body, then I'll do intuitive eating. And this client actually felt this way a little bit. But we actually worked on, let's actually get really, really in tune with your body. Let's see what your body has to say about things. Let's see where your body wants to go. And let's keep pursuing your happiness on the way. And so we did that. And what happened is, she was starting to recognize that some of her struggles in her career as an actress were really coming from just holding on to this idea that she could never, and all these internalized beliefs that she could never be successful or be okay if she didn't lose weight. But what she found is the more confident she got in her own self and her own abilities to know her body and her own embodiment, she started to be more successful in her work. And she didn't have to she lost very little weight in the intuitive eating process, but just the way she carried herself and walked around the world completely changed. It was amazing to see that she didn't have to get in a smaller body to be successful. And intuitive eating is for anybody. You don't have to, again, you can be struggling with certain disease states, or you could have had a gastric bypass surgery of any kind. And you can learn how to trust your own signals again as well. They're there. They might be a little different depending on our life circumstances, whether it's gut health issues or anatomy change, let's say a little bit. They're still there, and they're still there waiting for us to get back to knowing and trusting again. So what do we need to do to have this much freedom? So you may have heard that the first thing you need to do to actually learn how to be a more normal, attuned eater is to stop dieting ASAP. To start giving more full permission, to start eating more supportively. And sometimes that might look like eating more regular meals. Sometimes it might look like getting more full at certain meals, providing for yourself more. But the truth is that this is the first step, that trying to restrict your food to get a certain body type you think you can be happy with or to manage your emotions actually makes more of that more out of control. And I love this comment. This woman, Abby, had only worked with me for a week, and we talked about the Key Study. We talked about the cultural influences that she personally had just in her mind, and she could see that really quickly. All of that was such a huge burden on her. So she says, just 1 week into my work with Tracy, I realize I'm not alone. I feel that I'm not crazy, now that I understand that dieting makes you think and worry about food more, and how it can make you more emotional and out of control, not less. And so we talked about the physical, emotional, even spiritual side effects of food restriction, how it impacts how we see the world, how it kind of keeps us in this small cave, in this small box, and on how we live. And we don't even recognize that that's a consequence of diet culture.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the myths behind needing to weigh less to be healthy, and actually why trying to lose weight keeps health from eluding us. And I know it sounds totally counterintuitive, but hang in with me. We have to understand that weight is not a proxy for health. And so many people actually diminish their health by going on diet after diet. Think about it. If you're continuously stripping yourself and under eating of just general overall nutrients, which calories come along with nutrients, they're not separate, is that you are diminishing your bone storage, your organ stores, your muscle stores. And that's why over time, we get less healthier from dieting just because we're continually depleting our bodies. And of course, if you all have seen the height weight charts, the BMI things at your doctor's office, you know this stuff is bogus. And I'm just going to show you why. If you read this, you're going to be like, what? If you're reading this now, I'm going to read it to you. Is that BMI is derived from a simple math formula. It was devised in the 1830s by this guy here, a Belgian astronomer, who was a math guy, a statistician. This wasn't a health scientist necessarily. And they use it to try to decide what makes a healthy person. So apparently we are still using logic from the 1830s before we could ever measure blood to see what's in the blood and what's happening here. Is basically decide by looking at a person and by dividing their weight in kilograms by their height in meters squared 2 times 704. Does that tell you or me anything about our bodies at all? And of course not. What is an indicator of health is super complicated. What about our health behaviors, our stress levels, the stigma that we have to deal with, our past traumas, the environments we live in? That has so much more to do with our height and our weight. And I know I'm just kind of calling it out as I see it, is you can't look at a person and decide what their health status is by looking at them. It's just not possible. The issue is, though, that as long as the health industry continues to be obsessed with size, they are missing out on helping so many people. And I want you all to be resilient and learn how to be your own health advocate here. It's no, I don't want to go to the doctor and you give me a weight loss lecture because I have a cold. No dice. I'm going to find another doctor. I want you to expect and respect good care. So what do? Is attuned eating. We can work to stabilize our bodies and our health. So Sarah, she has diabetes, and she finally recognized that continuing to go up and down her weight and restrict and then gain it back wasn't helping her diabetes get any better. And actually even being overly strict with her diet wasn't helping her manage her diabetes. So despite being constantly pressured by her doctor to lose weight, when she started doing intuitive eating over the course of about 6 months to a year, her A1C got much, much better because she got off the restrict and binge cycle and just stabilized her eating. And she stopped over exercising. She was also like an over exerciser, and then she would crash and couldn't move for months because she would just burn out. So when she got all this stabilized, her blood levels got so much better. And a lot of clients struggle with menstrual and hormone issues, and I gotta tell you that once we are just well nourished and we stopped weight cycling, here's another client. Now both Sarah's in a larger body, Bailey here is like what I would call average or standard size, somewhere in the middle. And she was struggling with her period because of, again, just under eating from chronic dieting. And it had stripped her body of nutrients. And her body was really sensitive around weight fluctuations in her cycle. And so once we worked on, again, letting go of the calorie counting, putting more focus on body-based eating, and really working on some of her anxiety and stress from a nervous system perspective, not from a therapy perspective, but through helping her body not feel so much threat, her body started to feel like, okay, it's safe for me to even have a period with enough nutrition and just feeling safe and settled. So as we're talking about here, letting go of weight and focusing on health is probably the healthiest thing we could ever do. I know it's easier said than done to change paradigms, but what the professionals that espouse everyone needs to be thinner to be healthy believe is that eating less will fix any kind of health problems we have, but actually dieting is part of the reason why people actually do not become more healthy. And that's why, it's, to really be able to prevent any future damage in your life, becoming your own nutrition expert is going to is life-saving. It's really, really important to learn how to be your own health advocate and to know your body and to get off the cycle of constantly chasing other people's miracle diets that get you a lower weight that's going to save your health, because we are totally capable of being our own health experts. Now we can learn from other people, of course, but from people who don't have an agenda to get you to look a certain way. There is good, solid, sound nutrition advice out there. There really is, but it's just not sexy and it doesn't promise big miracles. And so that's something that, is important to think about. And so this is one example. There's this guy, Stephen Blair from the Cooper Institute. I don't like the word obesity because I think it's stigmatizing and medicalizes a body size. But anyway, they do really good work there around movement. And what he says is we've studied this from many perspectives in women and men, and we get the same answer. It's not the obesity, basically size, it's the fitness. So we really want to work on our physical, mental, and emotional well-being versus it's all about the weight. All right, so I want to talk about Lauren a little bit. She had so much frustration, her and her family, and around just kind of, they were in this cycle feeling stuck, with her stuck in her eating disorder for a long time. And through this attuned eating process and really focusing on physical and emotional well-being, they were able to start a family. It was so great. So I'll read this to you. So Lauren says, my husband just said that we owe all this moving on to start a family to you. I'm so grateful every day that my therapist put us in touch with you, because we really owe my whole recovery to you. And no, I don't take all that credit, but this is what she said. I never thought I would be in this place, totally fine eating barbecue chips, completely trusting that my body knows what I need. I've never been in a better place, and thank you so much for getting us the tools to get there. So this last tool I want to talk to you all about is learning how to decode food and body talk. This is pivotal. So let's talk a little bit about how we got here and to making our, it's almost like we have this big ball of yarn, and we've mixed up the language of emotions, like happy, mad, sad, or afraid, with the ability to express those things, and we've kind of melded that into the language of food and body. So keep that in mind as I'm talking here. So our culture assigns worth to what it believes is worthy. A culture that values thinness as more worthy can keep a person who has wounding around feeling loved or worthy, engaging in thoughts and behaviors, for example, of dieting to try to soothe that wound. And so the diet industry, they got this whole setup, right? If you just want to be more confident, you just need to get XYZ size like Susie here in the after picture, and everything will be fine. And you won't feel this internal crawling out of your skin kind of feeling. Well, we actually need to lean into what that feeling is instead of blaming the body for it. Unfortunately, thinness doesn't heal our inner wounds, just keeps us on the surface of our lives and in dieting culture. But decoding can help us move past those sufferings because we can become aware of it. And knowing how to decode what is really going on decreases our stress and helps us become more emotionally resilient, because now we have a tool. We're not hopeless and we're not helpless. So decoding is going to help us to take the bad out of fat and the good out of thin, these words and these belief systems, and it neutralizes body size. So that's one of the main benefits of it. It helps us, again, to become more emotionally resilient and aware. So it almost feels like you have this tool that nobody else does, because when you say I feel fat, you're actually saying I feel uncomfortable, and you know how to start working through the layers of that. And it makes us less vulnerable to what others think and say around dieting food around us, and we can get more grounded and confident in who we are. So if you want to make peace with your body, we've got to learn how to decode bad body thoughts and good and food talk. All that is rooted in uncomfortable, maybe not even recognizable emotion that we don't always have the language for, or we don't know what to do with, or that it feels just too overwhelming to speak of. And I want you to remember, nothing else from this training here is that recognize that I feel fat and I gotta eat. Like, those bingey feelings are code language for I feel uncomfortable, and that's your first step. All right. So Dani was one where this was the most important part of her work in this process, is that, this is what she said: when I think about my life a year ago, I was really lost and feeling depressed and lonely. You really helped me to get past some of these really big hurdles, and your methods still help me today. I hope one day I can help people like you help people like you have, because you have such a special impact on people's lives. So all in all, I want to just thank you for everything. So Dani is one of the people that use this decoding process, and she used it every day, over and over and over, until those triggers were just less triggering. And before you knew it, she was able to have just a wider range of resiliency around being in diet culture. So far, we have talked about that trying to lose weight to control binging, or just to lose weight to feel happier and more confident, it's 9 out of 10 times going to result in more out of control eating and weight instability. And when we learn how to eat in a body and trusting kind of way with intuitive eating, body-based hunger and fullness eating, and learning how to honor all of our different hungers, we can work with our bodies instead of fighting them, and calm all that inner chaos. When we focus on weight to improve health, it actually doesn't show us, from the research perspective, to make us healthier. In fact, we continuously strip nutrients that we desperately need to be more vital and have energy and do the things we want to do in life. It does erode our health. And intuitive eating focuses on actual health behaviors and inner wisdom, and it puts weight to the back burner, and it allows our weight to be naturally what it needs to be. And of course, learning to decode our negative food and body talk can bring us to a place of compassion and healing with our struggles with worth, feeling and being loved, and feeling safe. And it takes us out of that red herring chasing chasing thinness and perfectionism with food to earn people's admiration, or to even try to stay, it's like a faux sense of safety. So I hope you get this one thing from this training and from all these case studies, is that your life does not have to be defined. My life hasn't been defined by my eating struggles and body image issues, and the people you've heard talk about today. Some of these people came to me and they've been struggling for 10 plus years. And it can be something you've overcome. So whether you've been dieting and struggling with dieting or binging or body image issues for 2 years or 30 years, people do make peace. It's not just for somebody else. And of course, I'm so passionate about this, is that you weren't born to believe your body isn't okay. That's a social construct. And we learn body dissatisfaction so we can unlearn it. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about, how can you make this happen? Again, I'm an action taker, I'm a feeler, and I'm a doer. And so I imagine maybe some of you are like that too, that recognizing we have to take risk. And I know just deciding to eat what we want and careless about what people think and honor our bodies isn't just like snapping our fingers. There is a decision to believe you matter to do this. So there's a level of I'm really scared, but I'm willing. That's all you have to start with. And to have peace with this, to have peace, we have to unpack the function of dieting, binging, and body worries in the first place, and cultivate compassion, curiosity, and build some safety and some resiliency and courage to make attuned eating a way of life. So it's not just about trying to eat from hunger and fullness and ditching dieting. We do need to do that. but it's deeper than that. So I don't want you to feel like if you've tried to do intuitive eating or you've worked with other people that you are doing something wrong. It's just that there's some more pieces to the puzzle that maybe you haven't learned about yet. And I just, how do we make this happen? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can follow this already created path that I've tread and thousands of others have already done too. And there's no reason for you to just do it alone. And so again, I don't want you to be like me. It took me 7 years of fighting my body and kind of fighting going in and out of getting help and then leaving it because of, feeling like I didn't deserve it or I wasn't worth the time or the resources or whatever to do that before I realized that my way wasn't going to fix it. Because I even lost weight or I've gotten more fit and I got there and I recognize I'm still freaking not so happy, miserable. I mean, I might be a little smaller or might be a little more toned or whatever, but that didn't fix this sense of not feeling comfortable in my body. And it wasn't fixing the restrict and binge cycle either. It was just holding me back, trying to hold on to weight loss as the ticket. So I'd love you to get to this place where so many others have, is that reaching out to get support and tools to practice on a daily basis creates new neural pathways in your system to help you be able to see food and body differently. And when people do that, they just progress faster. And so this is what attuned eating for attuned living is all about. It's not just about the food and body, but about having these tools that you can use to help free yourself from food and body image issues. You can use in all other areas of your life. So I want to say, just real quickly, that if you're not interested in letting go of chronic dieting, kind of moving forward in this might not be ready yet, because this process actually will help you have a lot of freedom. And if you feel like you have to continue to punish and shame yourself for anything, or that improving your health by being really hard on yourself, it's not really going to get people to be more connected to you. And if you're hoping that intuitive eating is any kind of diet or lifestyle thing, it's actually not that. There's no diets. There's no trying to get your weight to go down purposely, because I know that's super unethical, because your weight's going to go back up within 2 years. And I think that's just a really icky thing to promote. So that's why we don't do it here. And so in this process, you're going to learn a lot about how to get more attuned to your body's signals of hunger and fullness, and learn to trust your body, to drop the obsession about food and weight, and how to prevent emotional eating because of deprivation. Not just deprivation from food, but even thoughts about depriving yourself of food, and of course from the emotional aspect as well. We're going to learn the nuances of hunger and fullness without turning it into a diet. We will process all your fear out that if I don't lose weight, I'm going to mess up my health. And that if there's any not uncovered fears about health and weight, we're going to dive deep into why it feels like it's hard to let go of from a dieting perspective. And we're going to learn how to hate the body less and work our way towards body acceptance and respect and honoring and peace. And this is going to be and have some really practical ways to decrease emotional over and under eating. So this woman, her name's Kathy, and she gave me one of the most wonderful compliments I've ever gotten in my life. So I want to share this with you, because this is what happens in our session. So she says, Tracy opened her heart and walked me gently through my thoughts, my feelings, and my old narratives. Her prompts helped me discover places that I didn't recall that I'd buried. She guided me through what would have been a winding path had I gotten alone, but she helped me take a more direct route to what was troubling me. And then how I could have been more supportive and better to myself. And Tracy's invested in my growth. If you want to sum up in a nutshell what sessions are like, that's what it's like. So what else is helpful in this whole process? You may never have heard the word somatic tools, but it's super important in this process, because as we start to let go of food and body image, what starts to happen after a course of a couple weeks to a couple months is that we start to feel more just overall sensations and feelings in our bodies, and it can make it a little bit more difficult to stay the course with intuitive eating. So basically, I use kind of a body-based, bottom-up approach to be able to help people navigate whether it's old somatic memory or just like their emotional body language, and to separate that out separate that out from food and body. That way you know the difference. And why this is so important, because it teaches us how to grow our window of tolerance for healthy responses to stress. So, who doesn't want a way to slow down, feel less stressed, and not have that adrenalized feeling, or eventually, like some of us get when we get too busy for too long, we kind of get this, I can't get up and go anymore feeling. And these are tools that I use in sessions with clients that help us have just a gentle, quick body awareness that you can do on your own anytime. And especially they're really helpful before meals, or helpful before situations where you're going to be, just in situations around people that it might be uncomfortable or whatever. But it helps us be in touch with our bodies, more in touch with our hunger and fullness. And it's just a really practical and kind way to provide self-care for ourselves. So speaking of self-care, I'm really a pragmatic person around self-care, and I want you to be able to have things that work in your life. So what I've seen is that people of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds have learned to care for their diverse bodies and experiences. You can do that without dieting. People think that, like, I care about myself and that's why I'm dieting, and it shows that I care about myself. It's like, that's not really what dieting's about. If dieting was about self-care, it wouldn't have the harmful side effects. And I want to have people that have pragmatic, practical advice around boundaries, self-care, emotional tolerance, and resiliency, which basically make intuitive eating way more smooth. So, if you're a person who's struggling with different parts of your life, whether it's transitions from high school to college, or to your careers, to having children, to menopause, all these are times in our lives where things are kind of like, not blown up, but like the life as we knew it is changing, and we need more self-care at those times, not less. And those tend to be times where we try to buckle down harder on our food and our body to get it right, to control things, when in fact we actually need less control to be more in control. And of course, intuitive eating wouldn't be around not talking about how do we hedge our bets with health and address chronic stress. So when we're able to do that, when we're able to have more spaciousness and vitality, that starts to happen with food and body image improvements and healing. And it starts to unlock a lot of vital life energy and gets us unstuck. And it's almost like that begets more positive changes with our self-care. It's almost like you more want to do things that are supportive, because life doesn't feel so hard. And of course, we want to uncouple undesirable behaviors with food and body, and couple that up with joyful eating and movement and being around people that we care about. And honestly, this stuff is really cool. Like, this ability to be able to uncouple chronic stress from our food. It's not something that a lot of people talk about or do. And it's just something I feel like it's a missing piece for so many people who've tried other things. And of course, we're going to talk a ton about decoding food cravings and restrictions. So I want you to learn how to know what those, I've got to have the chocolate, the cheese, and the chips, or the opposite. Let's say you have some really rigid rules, like I never eat sugar, or I don't eat gluten, or I don't eat XYZ. What is all that really saying about how you are trying to manage your emotions, or suppress things, or express something? And I want you to have some confidence around learning how to have choice. Choice is so important. I've never seen a person who hasn't struggled with food and body image issues who doesn't have issues around feeling like they didn't have any power or choice, and it comes out through our food, and we want to heal that. All right, so these are all things that I think are possible to, these are the tools. We talked about 3 in depth today, but these are all the things that are possible to be worked on around how to help you, I want to say forever, for good, full recovery, to have a healthy relationship with food. So I know you can see all these, please screen share those, or screenshot this, because I don't want to bore you with constantly reading to you. But, there's a tuned eating for a tuned living process to get out of being overly controlling with your food and fearing weight gain. I want you to have stress management tools that are body-based, not just constantly mentally trying to reframe everything all the time. I want you to be your own food nutrition expert. I want you to know how to decode food cravings and I feel fat. I want you to know how to feel safer in your body. And I want you to be really resilient and savvy to what the influences all around us in the soup bowl that we live in try to influence you to not be embodied in your body and trust yourself. And we want to be able to be resilient to all that. So I would love to connect with you. And this is just a free call to see if this is something you want to work more in depth with me. And I'm just going to read out the website here. You can reach me to do a call just to see if it were a good fit, or just to get some of your questions answered about like, well, how is all this different than maybe other things that I've tried before? I mean, even if that's all you're curious about, I would love to meet you. So here's the website for those of you who aren't watching the slideshow. It's http://bit.ly/Tracy B Clarity Call. So that's TracyBClarityCall. So it's just a complimentary call with me, and I like to do like kind of a version of assessment that I do in an actual session, but it's pretty much like a lot of the generalizations of what you're really going through, because I want to see if there are some areas that in this session that I can help you improve upon quickly. And really important to me is that your concerns are seen and heard with care and compassion. And I'll be able to give you some kind of short and long-term things I could see that you would be able to work on to get to the goals that you want to in your life with your food, your body, your health, and stress management, and what tools that I would suggest that you would use and to most effectively make peace with your food. So I just wanted to address real briefly that I know a lot of times, like I worked with other people before I found my right fit. And so when people tell me they work with others, all I want to say about this is just this one thing here, is that I know that when people commit to daily work with making peace with their food and weight, no matter what the pace is, if it takes you 6 sessions or 60, whatever, people will make progress when their mindset and their actions around food and body image. I just have my own recovery and the recoveries of 13 years and hundreds, if not thousands, of people of all backgrounds to attest that freedom is possible. Like, I'm optimistic about every person that I ever talk to, whether they work with me or not, is that I can see what's possible and give you some ideas of how to get there. And it's just truly a matter of not giving up and finding the right fit. I think that's what recovery is really all about. So I want to see you succeed, and I want your I know this sounds really I guess I'm very idealistic. I want to see the generations after you succeed as well. I desire to see thousands of people living free of the oppression and internalized fat phobia, living more fully, raising body positive kids, and influencing people that you're around to eat and live more authentically. And all the things that I've talked about today, I've put together to help you accomplish this. So again, here's the link to schedule a call with me if you like. And here are all the things again that we would be working on or possibly talking about. And so remember, just as we end up here with our training, is that you can learn to trust your body with food. You can make peace with your body and become your own nutrition expert. Is that we can leave behind fear about health by focusing on health behaviors and not weight. And how you feel now, maybe the stuckness you feel now, doesn't mean how you're going to feel this way forever. And so I know some of you listening to this might also have some chronic health concerns. That doesn't mean that you being an intuitive eater and fully trusting your body is going to make all your pain go away or those kind of things. I think we just learn to live more at peace with the situations we're in, and we do the best we can in the situations we're in. But it's like, why not be able to take out one more thing that's stressing you out? And I want you to learn how to decode your feelings of I feel fat and I've got to eat. Those moments help you know more deeply what your needs are for other hungers in your life, not just with food, but such as play and love and connection and reconciliation and boundaries and speaking your truth. And I want people to stop worrying about what other people think of us. I want you to have the peace of mind, knowing that you have an opportunity to live a more full life. And so let's talk. Let's end the war with peace, and you get some peace of mind around your food and body. So if you're like me, and like I was, I desired to have peace with food and body. I didn't care that much about I had to love my body to be happy. I just wanted food and body to take its rightful place. Like, it's something that we have to do multiple times a day. It should be enjoyable. I want to trust myself, and I don't want my body to be the thing I think about all the time. So you don't have to have these lofty goals of like, oh, I love my body, I think I'm so hot. It's like, no. We want to be able to like not have these thoughts be the predominant ones in our life. So if attuned eating for attuned living, if this feels like it has all the tools to help you on your path, then I would love to be a part of that with you. So again, here's the link below. If you're interested, you can click on it. If it's showing up on your screen in blue here, that should totally bring you right to that link. If you're struggling with getting a call, you can always email me at tracybrownrd at gmail.com.